Shri Ganesha Sharada Gurubhyo Namaha Sindhuraruna Vigraham Trinayanam Manikyamaulispurat Taranayaka Shekharam Smitamukhim Apinamakshuruham Panibhyam Alipurna Ratna Chashakam Raktotpalam Bibhratim Saumyam Ratna Ghadastha Rakta Charanam Dhyayet Param Ambikam. Welcome to all for this session on Lalitopakhyanam. As we have seen in the previous chapter, Parvati approached Shiva with all due respect, devotion, as well filled with love in her heart. And Kama was waiting for that opportune moment and threw his arrow toward Shiva's heart. And that very moment, Shiva looked up at Parvati, and Parvati was handing him over the rosary beads into his hand, the Dmakshamala made out of the lotus beads. And at that very moment, Parvati's hand touched Shiva, and that sent a shivering chill in through the nerves of Shiva, thrilling his body. And then the sudden change in Hara's countenance and his searching eyes filled Rati Devi's heart with panic, because till that time Shiva was filled with the love, and all of a sudden Shiva could able to wonder at the sudden disturbance in his ever serene heart, and he started looking around for who is causing this kind of a disturbance. And that searching eyes of Shiva filled Rati Devi's heart with a panic. When Rudra's eyes lighted on Madana hidden behind the Madhavi shrub, Gandharpa was in fact actually at that time he was fixing another arrow to his bow, unmindful of Rati's urgent warning. The sight of it roused the anger of Rudra, who knit his brows in great wrath. Parvati also saw Rati and Manmata and was alarmed at the Shiva's anger. She silently moved aside and drew away from Rudra's presence into the outer court in great fear and trepidation, because she saw Rudra is getting into the anger. In order to not to disturb his senses, she silently moved herself away from the inner court into the outer court, and Shiva had the glance of Manmata, who is getting prepared to throw the next arrow. As Rudra's eyes reddened in anger against Gandharpa's intrusion and impertinent behavior in venturing to disturb him, his third eye opened, and lo, there shoot out a lightning like flame of intense potency, which to the dread of all the devas and sky dwellers who fled in terror, enveloped Gandharpa and burnt him to ashes in an instant. Uma trembled to witness the fate of Kamaraja, and overwhelmed with the grief, she put her trembling hands to her frightened eyes. Rati Devi, who had frightened at the sight of her lord in flames, now rose to see only his ashes by her side. At the sight of the ash, she fell into swoon again. Shankara, in the meanwhile, disappeared from Sthanvashrama along with Nandishvara and all his Pramathaganas. Sthanvashrama area became desolate with Rudra gone and Vasantha humbled. The youthful garden again turned into a dried up jungle bereft of flowers and streamlets and greenery. Finding his daughter standing like a statue amid all this desolation and unable to think of her great disappointment, the sudden anticlimax to her freshly budding hopes, Himavan approached her and consoling her said, O daughter of mine, grieve not at what has happened. Desires which are great and worthwhile will always fructify in the end after encountering vast difficulties and obstructions. Vignas will be many for any good attempt. We must learn to be patient and persevering. A heart which is softer than a flower can become harder than a diamond due to the nature of time. Time for your wedding with Mahesha is not yet, perhaps, so come and pray to your Ishtadevata and perform the penance, if necessary, for the fulfillment of your desire in the due course. So saying, Himavan took his daughter home along with her handmaids. Meanwhile, Rati Devi, recovering from her swoon, beheld the now desolate scene resembling a cemetery with the ashes of her lord beside her. Choking again and again, she wept and called out to her lord, who had been the most handsome youth alive. He grew distraught with sorrow and wished again and again that her lord had desisted because of all the many ill omens. She was angry with Indra for flattering her husband and inducing him to undertake this fatal mission. Vasantha, who had all the while been standing aside, unable to control his own sorrow at what had befallen his friend, now approached Rati Devi and spoke very tenderly to her, trying to console her as best as he could, reminding her of the Brahma's curse on Manmatha and its expiation resulting in their final reunion, never to part again. Thus, in this part of the story, as we approach to the end part of this, which is leading to some kind of a tragic in the mid of the story, Shiva saw it was all the act of Kandarpa or Manmata who is disturbing his sense while Parvati was in front of him, which had made Shiva to look up at Parvati. And on seeing Manmata, Shiva with great anger because Manmata was trying to disturb him, he opened his third eye and burnt Manmata to ashes. And never expecting this, Ambika or Gauri, who was standing outside his court, he was trembling with the fear of seeing the wrath of Shiva. And at the same time, her father Himavan came there. He consoled his daughter and told her not to lose the heart because for every good thing to happen, a time has to come. So he told his daughter to pray with her Ishta Devata and perform the penance if required in order to please Shiva and get him as her husband. Meanwhile, Rati Devi, having lost her husband, she was lamenting and she was crying around because of the flattery done by Indra. Manmata get into this dangerous task, which finally led him to turn himself into the ashes. But at the same time, Vasanta, the friend of Kandarpa, he keep consoling Rati. He told her about a curse of Brahma that was upon Kama sometime in the past that would finally lead to the death of Kama, which is not a permanent one. However, he will once again going to come up again into the life, and then onwards the Rati and Manmata will never get parted from each other. We will going to look into that curse of Brahma in the next chapter. Namaste Sharada Devi Kashmira Puravasini Twamaham Prarthaye Nityam Vidya Danancha Dehime. Goodbye.